Hey everybody, this is Peter from Roland. We're going to take an in-depth look at the TR-8S, and we're going to see how it's a very approachable drum machine that you can manipulate either live or in the studio and interact with it so that you're able to create really great drum beats and really great productions with it. So let's take a look. One of the coolest features that we've implemented with the TR-8S is having 8 variations per pattern. You can chain these variations together. You can also copy these variations in real time, all without having to stop the sequence. So I'm going to kind of show you what that looks like just by playing a pattern, copying it, and then I'll be able to change variations without actually queuing them up. So let's see what that looks like. So I have this variation playing. I'll hold copy, hit variation A, and then copy it to variation B. Now, before I queue up variation B, I'm going to hold TR-Rec, press variation B, and now I'm looking at the variation, but I'm not playing it, so I can make some adjustments so that I have a little bit more variety. And now when I'm ready, I'll press variation A and then hold variation B to chain them together. So now I have a longer rhythmic phrase, and it gives a little bit more variation and it's a little bit more interesting to listen to. And I can do this any number of times, and I can chain up to 8 variations together. Now, when you have 8 variations per pattern, you can have up to 16 patterns in a pattern bank, and then you have 8 banks of 16 patterns. So the measure count that you're dealing with is in the thousands. It's truly a lot of storage. The TR-8S is really great to basically include all of your sets and all of your performances onto one box without needing to have a backup file or any kind of extended storage space. One of the coolest things that we've added with the TR-8S is the addition of substeps. And substeps are a way to create ratcheting rhythms or repeating figures on just one step. So I'll show a little bit of what that means by hitting, say, hi-hats right here, creating some beats, and then holding sub, and then adding them. And then I can change that speed as well by holding the sub button and then using the value dial, and then putting that in. And here's what it sounds like. And all of that could be done live. This is like a great feature to have when you're trying to create more complex rhythms and you want to kind of get some more interesting modern features into your drum beats. One of the improvements made to the TR-8S is the addition of last step being different for each instrument. Each instrument can have its own pattern length now, and so that's great for creating polyrhythms or evolving rhythmic figures. And I've got an example where I can kind of play with this live, and we'll just see what it sounds like. So I'll take the open hi-hats, hold last, shorten the pattern length of the hats to, say, 12 steps. Take this percussion instrument right here, maybe change it to 7 steps long. Take the rim shot, maybe make that 10 steps. Now I've got an evolving rhythmic pattern that I can kind of let play for a while, and it will always sound interesting. Perhaps the most exciting feature about the TR-8S is the addition of motion control and motion recording. This is the ability to automate different controls onto the sequence, whether it's tuning, decay, your customizable control knob, or other features. You can automate everything on the sequence, either real time or by step. So I'll show you a little bit about what that means. I have this sub bass and this melodic sample that's playing throughout this pattern, and these are great examples to use when I want to maybe change the pitch of something. So let's take a listen to it, and then I'll change the tuning on the last variation using stepwise motion recording. So that chord right there, I want to change it to that note. Now, if I want to start to record something in real time, I can select the track that I want to record, so say these hi-hats, hit record on the motion recording section right here. And make my changes. And now it's automating. And this is an awesome tool to use to create more animation in your sequences. One of the features that we've taken from the TR-08 and the TR-808 is auto fill-in. And you can use auto fill-in to have up to 2 customizable drum fills to come every 2 measures to 32 measures or manually, just by using the manual trig button. I'm going to play a little sequence and then trigger drum fills to come in when I want them to, and I'll kind of talk you through it as it's happening. So I have my pattern playing. I'll hold on the autofill. I'll pick the fill that I want, so fill number 1, and I'll hit the manual trig, and it gives me a drum fill right there. I can also use on to select scatter, then have that come in. And what's even interesting too is if I hold on, I can actually pick a variation to act as the drum fill as well. So if I wanted variation G to be my drum fill, I could do that as well. So on the panel, you'll see that there's a performance pad to the bottom right. The performance pad is a great way to lay down rhythms while the sequence is playing, and it's really easy to use. It's velocity sensitive, so it will remember your weak hits and your strong hits, and it'll record right onto the sequence. So I'll play back this pattern. I have hand clap selected, and I'll use the performance pad to lay down a new drum beat. And you can use this any number of times with any of the instruments and create entire patterns just using the performance pad. The TR-8S features a trigger output to use to interact with analog or Eurorack or other pieces of gear that have an external trigger input. And this is a great way to control analog sequencers while timing it to the TR-8S. And you don't need to use any of the outputs to take advantage of that. You have a trigger out sequence just by hitting these 2 buttons. You can also connect a sequencer to any of the external outputs because they can be configured to act as triggers as well. So you can use this to control any number of analog sequencers. So in this case, I have the SHONA going into its external inputs, and through this routing, I can actually take advantage of the master effects as well, which applies to the external signal that's going into it. And I'll use the performance pad and the step sequencer to lay down some triggers and control the sequence.